Hi, we're going to read Runt Chapter 16. That night, Runt awoke to find Biter standing over him. "Come with me," Biter said. It was an order. Runt rose. "Where are we going?" he asked, even as he fell into step behind the white wolf. "You'll see," Biter replied in his usual brusque way. Then he added mysteriously, "You want a chance to make your father proud of you, don't you?" A thrill ran along Runt's spine. How will I do that, he wanted to ask. How will I ever do that? But he knew better than to ply Biter with questions. Raven appeared before them, balancing on a low bush just ahead. "Guess what, Raven?" Runt called. "I'm going to make my father proud." "Be careful," was Raven's only response, and he stretched his wings and flew upward. Runt watched Raven disappear beyond the thinning treetops, then turned his attention back to the white wolf. He didn't need Raven's warning. He knew all about being careful. Porcupine had taught him that lesson very thoroughly. But what exactly should he be careful of? He followed Biter's silent steps through the forest. The night was still except for a light breeze rattling in the trees, the gentle swish of the fallen leaves underfoot. When they arrived at a clearing Runt had never seen before, Biter squeezed through a wire fence and stopped abruptly. Runt crawled on his belly under the bottom wire and joined Biter. "See," Biter said, and Runt did indeed see. The only problem was that he had no idea what he was seeing. The light from a half moon glinted off the splotchy sides of a herd of large black and white creatures. Larger than deer, not as big as moose. Succulent, even soft looking. They grazed the way moose and deer did, but Runt had never seen anything like them. Their smell was vaguely familiar, though. "I've told King about them, but he won't listen," Biter said. "He refuses even to come with me to see." "What are they?" Runt whispered. It was hard to believe they were real, despite the fact that he and Biter were standing right out in the open, in full view. The creatures continued to crop grass as they had never heard of wolves. Even as Runt asked, he caught another scent. Not just the smell of living meat, but something more. The odor of humans the creatures belonged to. "They're called cows," Biter replied. "Thought you'd know all about them. Their owners are such good friends of yours." Friends? Runt's legs had begun to tremble the moment he had distinguished the human scent, and he tried to steady himself. In the brief time he had been with the humans, he hadn't grown accustomed to the stink they left on everything. Now he had to struggle to keep from turning and running blindly back into the forest. "Thought if you saw them, if you went back and told him, King would listen to you." Runt was too astonished even to reply. Why would Biter think his father would listen to him? One of the spotted black and white creatures was grazing close by, and she looked up, seeing them apparently for the first time. Now, thought Runt, now she will understand her danger. But she didn't. She simply stood there and gazed in their direction, her dark eyes placid and incurious. Runt had never had such an odd encounter. When a wolf sees a moose or a deer, a kind of contract passes between them. The creature says, "Yes, you may take me," or "No, this isn't my time." But always the prey understands. These cattle had no comprehension at all. Why, even foolish Rabbit knew better than to stand and stare into the eyes of a wolf. If he had remained with the humans, let them care for him day after day, would he too have grown up so stupid? The thought made Runt shudder. "Let's get a talisman to take back to your father," Biter said. "Maybe that will convince him." As he spoke, he lopped lightly into the open grassy field, passing the cow who had been watching them, and come up behind another. This one went on grazing, didn't even take a few steps to move away. and when Biter got close, he jumped up and grabbed her dangling tail in his fierce jaws. The cow's attention was caught finally with her tail. She bellowed, kicked, and began to run. Already, though, Biter had fallen away, but he hadn't released his grip. He dropped to the ground with the cow's long, fringed tail sliced off neatly and clamped between his teeth. The cow kept running, bellowing. Several others in the herd galloped a few clumsy steps to move out of the way of the running one's clamor. Then they went back to their grazing as though a large white wolf in their midst, holding the severed tail of one of their own, was nothing to be particularly concerned about. The wounded cow came up against another fence and stopped finally. She moved pitifully, dripping blood from the stump where her tail used to be. Most of the rest of her kind still ignored her. Biter turned and trotted across the pasture toward Runt, grinning, still holding the creature's tail in his teeth. "Here," Biter said, dropping the tail at Runt's feet. "Take that home to your daddy and let him see how sweet it is." Runt sniffed the tail. It smelled rich and warm. It smelled, in fact, exactly like the meat he had been offered when he had been with the humans, though he hadn't been ready to eat then. But there was no question it would be tasty, and a whole herd of these creatures, not one of which had the wits or strength to fight off a single wolf, let alone a pack, stood there before them. His family was through being hungry. That was certain. And Biter was going to let him present the gift of this easy food to his father? Runt picked up the sweet-smelling tail in his teeth. What will friend Raven have to say about this, he wondered. What silly warning will he give now when the time comes, won't he be glad enough to share a good meal? Provider, Runt decided as he trotted beside Biter, the tail clamped tightly in his teeth. That would be a good name. It had a much better ring than Runt.